She built her empire on other people's secrets, on lives laid bare under her unflinching gaze. Wendy Williams wasn't just a talk show host. She was a force of nature, a storm of voice and opinion that millions tuned in to witness every single day. You couldn't look away, even when you wanted to. And there was one story she returned to again and again, like a scar she couldn't stop picking at. Whitney Houston. For years, Wendy dissected Whitney's struggles on air, naming the addictions, exposing the chaos, narrating her unraveling with a precision that made it feel clinical, even necessary. She broadcast someone else's pain while hiding her own. And then Whitney was gone. On February 11th, 2012, the world lost her. The voice that sold over 200 million records fell silent forever, leaving a void no one could fill. 2 days later, Wendy sat in her chair on live television, and something shifted. Something real broke through her armor. She cried, openly, uncontained, and for the first time admitted the truth she had never spoken before. She had recognized herself in Whitney's struggles. She wasn't judging from above. She was speaking from experience. Wendy Joan Williams was born on July 18, 1964, in Asbury Park, New Jersey, a town filled with myths, dreams, and quiet desperation. The youngest of three, she grew up in a stable household, yet she never fit the mold. Her parents were educated, careful, and utterly unprepared for a daughter who refused silence. She was loud when she was supposed to be quiet, curious when she was supposed to conform, unfiltered in a world that demanded masks, especially for young black girls in suburban New Jersey during the 1970s. School offered no sanctuary. Wendy was tall, brash, and endlessly curious about people, their secrets, their gaps between appearance and reality. She was not cruel, only aware, and that awareness set her apart, made her lonely, and later made her unstoppable. Her salvation came through radio. Teenaged Wendy discovered that a voice could be armor, a weapon, and a ticket out of invisibility. She gravitated not toward music, but raw, unflinching talk. Voices that dared to speak without apology. At Northeastern University in Boston, she learned to amplify herself, to take every rejection, every glance that said, "You don't belong," and transform it into the broadcast persona that would one day dominate New York airwaves. She was audacious, relentless, and unafraid to cross the lines others never touched. The same honesty that thrilled listeners also masked a dangerous secret. Wendy was battling an addiction to cocaine, a demon that had shadowed her long before fame made her household name. She lived on the knife edge between visibility and collapse, performing in vulnerability while fighting battles no one could see. Whitney Houston and Wendy Williams were stars in parallel worlds. Whitney's rise began in 1985, her voice already mythic. Wendy was building her own audience out of raw truth and fearless observation. Their paths didn't cross publicly for years, but the collision was inevitable. By the late 1990s, Wendy had reached the peak of her radio power, surviving firings, feuds, and the very industry that thrives on silencing voices like hers. And when she finally interviewed Bobby Brown in 2003, probing the messy, addictive world surrounding Whitney, she did so with surgical precision. The question shocked listeners, infuriated Whitney's camp, and cemented Wendy's reputation as fearless, even cruel. But what nobody saw was that she was reflecting her own battles through someone else's story. Every detail she exposed about Whitney's addiction was, in some fractured way, her own shadow she was pointing at the world instead of herself. When Whitney died, the truth she had avoided was forced into the open. On February 13, 2012, Wendy's tears were not just grief, they were recognition, confession, and understanding all at once. She admitted, in a voice trembling and broken, that she had been harder on Whitney than anyone else because she had seen in her own reflection the terror of what she could become. That moment was unpolished, unscripted, and unforgettable. It revealed the complexity behind the public persona, the cost of survival in an industry that rewards spectacle over humanity. Years later, Wendy would face her own devastating losses, betrayal, divorce, health crises, frontotemporal dementia. The empire she built slipped from her grasp, Her audience moved on, and the chair she once dominated was filled by someone else. But that confession in 2012 remains the truest act of her career. It wasn't a tribute, it wasn't a show, it was the unvarnished truth. Two women, two struggles, two lives intertwined by the same harsh realities of fame, addiction, and survival. One became a legend. The other lived through it, learned from it, and finally admitted what everyone watching had sensed but could not name. It was not cruelty, it was recognition. Not judgment, but reflection. And in that moment, you could see both women clearly, not as icons, not as enemies, but as human beings, fighting wars the world never fully witnessed.